that everyone who's not able to attend live can make sure. And I'm gonna also do a little pin situation. Pin, 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 pin. Okay, here we are, just getting all of the ducks in a row. So we're going to chat and just do kind of a panel discussion with both Heather and Achille. And then we're going to open it up for questions that you all might be having to your fellow nonprofit fundraising pros that maybe you just would rather hear from them versus me. We are talking about end of year campaign fundraising specifically. So if somehow my messaging confused you and you thought you were going to learn about grants or I don't know, capital campaigns or something, we're not going to be talking about that today. And yes, thank you actually, Tracy, for prompting me. If you all want to introduce yourselves in the comment, you know by now that nothing makes me happier than finding people are like in the same city or work in the same kind of space. So, you know, name, organization, geographical location, and maybe like tell us what is your end of year fundraising goal or end of year goal. It doesn't necessarily have to be money. I had a client once that their goal was to like bring in 100 new donors at any amount. It wasn't tied to any financial goal at all. And it actually ended up, they raised like more than they had ever raised financially just by setting that person goal. So there's lots of ways to do it. So go ahead and put that in your chat and we'll just get started. Heather, Achille, we're all good? Okay. So why don't we just start with you two introducing yourself, who you are, what's your organization? I think there might have been a job change maybe, but taking all of that good data over is a benefit of your new employer. And we'll start there. Achille, you want to go first? Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. I'm Achille. I'm the development coordinator at Family Promise of Brevard. We help families on their path back to stable housing. However, last year when I went through the program, I was the development director at Club Esteem, and we're an after-school program based out in Melbourne, Florida, helping underserved children. And this was my first like full-time development role. And so I was very excited to come across Jess and offer awesome resources.
Oh, I love that so much that that I didn't think I knew that that was your very first development role.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about that, and that it sounds like your leadership team listened to you, was that you got to experience this, because I find that so many leaders, executive directors, director of development, feel like they have to be the one to take this material. And it's like, sure, if you're a one person shop, yeah, but I actually think this is a phenomenal resource to provide your development coordinators and managers and let them kind of like take the reins so that you as the director of development or executive director can focus on like those major gift asks or maybe those match donations or whatever. So I love that. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool. Hi, Heather.
Hello, everyone. My name is Heather Hooper. I'm the Executive Director of Dementia Alliance of North Carolina. We improve the lives of those living with dementia and their caregivers in the state of North Carolina. And we do not have a development director yet. So I am that one small shop person. So looking forward to sharing with you all today.
And if anyone's in the Raleigh area looking to make a job change, Heather is diligently looking for her next hire. I'll just put that out there right now. Okay, so now let's just jump right into what we're here to talk about, which is the end of year campaign season. And I would love, before we talk about your campaigns and what you're raising money for and all this stuff, can you just tell the fine people on this call today, like on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you fall with like, I love fundraising so much, I wish I could do it 24/7 versus like, I would rather die on the low side? Like, where do we fall? Are we a 10? Are we a 4? Like, give some context, because I find that some people think that everyone who does fundraising loves fundraising, and I want to just hear if that's you.
So I'll start. I'm probably a solid 7. It depends on my mood. I
Totally.
love getting checks in the mail, like especially, the big ones. And so, but I would much rather be doing the operations, the strategy, the team building, all the other things before fundraising. So yeah, I'm a solid 7. It's just, yeah, don't mind it. That's not my favorite.
How about you, Kitley?
I would say I'm like an 8 or 9. I like fundraising. I like that
Nice.
part the most. I love the checks coming in, right? Like, that's my favorite. As more of our donors go online, I especially love going on Boomerang and hitting update all day to watch the money come in that way too. So yeah, I enjoy fundraising.
Okay.
I say, I like money and I like raising it.
Awesome. Well, then you were in the right spot. So let's hear about your last year campaign. We're going to talk about 2022 a bit, but I want to go back a bit and hear about last year's campaign. Like, did you have a theme? What were you raising money specifically for? Any of that would be super helpful.
Yeah, so last year's campaign, I was super stressed about because we have at Club of Steam where I worked last year, we have an annual fundraiser that happens in October. And we'd surpassed our goal. We made a ton of money. And then I thought, how am I going to make money at the end of the year, right? And so that was the challenge for myself, was like getting excited about it, doing it again in a different way. And so we decided to go with a financial goal, and we knew we wanted to fund our STEM programs and our summer programming. And so that's kind of what our theme was around. And our hashtag for it was equity through education. And not to take credit for this, but our local United Way has done a bunch of forums this year, all beginning with equity with, and their first one was equity through education. And I was like, they stole that from me. So it works.
Perfect. Thank you. How about you, Heather?
So last year, I kind of approached it. We really needed to step it up. And we also have fall fundraisers. So coming out of fall fundraisers, walks, especially, so like that peer-to-peer, I just knew we had the donor base to take it to the next level and really wanted to try. I was like that stereotypical, all right, a couple emails between Giving Tuesday and end of year and call it a day, send out a mailer. And I knew if we did more, we probably would see more return on that investment. Our goal was 65,000 last year. The year before, I don't know if you want me going into that, was we had brought in 47. And our theme was paving the way to better dementia care. So we do a lot of dementia navigation. Sorry, my phone is ringing. We do a lot of dementia navigation for families. And so it was all centered around our dementia navigation program.
And for anyone listening, I just want to call out. So, and I'm not sure if this is still your schedule, but I know I recognize a couple people on the call who fall into this category where you do some sort of fall event, like a 5K or a gala or something. And then you're like snuck right up against end of year giving season. And so I remember before you purchased last year, Heather, campaigns that convert, that was like a real topic of conversation, because you were just like, can I do all of this? Like, is that going to be hitting people too many times, too hard? And we really, I think, talked a lot about like proper segmenting and then using the time, even if it's a short amount, to like really nurture and storytell in between those seasons. So yeah, if anyone, can you remind me, is that event in October?
So our big walk that's in our major city was in September.
Okay.
And we also had walks like in smaller rural areas in September and October. We have moved now our other one to the spring.
Love it.
So that we aren't backing up. We still have some of the rural ones. We had a golf tournament today, but it's a completely different audience. So that I felt like really helped get us on that better track.
Okay, good. I'm so glad, because that's also just like a really lopsided, heavy fundraising season
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, so let's talk about before you joined Campaigns That Convert, what were just like some of the blockages that were kind of barricading you from like skyrocketing that goal? Like, what were you feeling limited by? What did you not know what to do? Like, I don't know, Achille, if you can even recall, like looking back to what would that be, 2020 or 2019? Just like, was it the rhythm? Was it like starting with a blank page? Tell us where you were just kind of feeling stuck.
I think I was feeling stuck, like creating urgency around fundraising and donations. And, you
Yeah.
know, if I gave at the event, why would I give again? Or what is this money going to? Or figuring out how to kind of package it in a way that connected with donors. And also like how long to go, right? Like we're probably going to talk about Giving Tuesday, but, you know, putting a lot of pressure on Giving Tuesday and then what happens after that, and just kind of figuring out that step-by-step plan.
And do you recall what I teach about Giving Tuesday?
Yes, and I've been trying to teach it at my new role, in my new role as well, which is like Giving Tuesday is the beginning of end of year. It's like it's on its own thing. So that was like, oh,
I know. I know. It's actually come up quite a bit for me recently, and I'm just like trying to remind people that end of year giving is a marathon, not a Giving Tuesday sprint.
yes.
How about you, Heather? Where were you kind of feeling some blockages or feeling stuck? Because you just said you had ambitions of really like, you know, going past what you'd done previously. And I know you needed some help to get there.
I think for me, finding time to write and story tell, you know, as an executive director, development is just a part of my job. And there's so much else going on. And so, you know, finding the time to get started, to even like have the way, but also like that nudge and that accountability of, you know, you would think 10, 15 years into my career, I'd be like, oh, I know what I'm doing. But like being able to contact Jess and be like, what do you think about this? Am I overcomplicating it? And just saying, yep, you are. In a nice way. But like having that accountability, but like just that getting started. And even, I mean, this year I deal with the same thing, but knowing I have the tools necessary to be able to like do that. And then last year, just going into it, I knew we needed to do a lot, but like, are we going to be able to raise that much more and meet our, like the fear of not meeting the goal was
yeah, right. Like I think that fear in general, am I going to meet my goal? Are people going to be into this the way I'm into this? If I commit to writing all of this content, is it going to pay off? Like that fear is so real. I deal with it in my own business, right? Like, is the juice going to be worth the squeeze? And one thing that I've been telling all of my clients is that I am really predicting this end of year giving season to be uniquely challenging compared to the last two. So the last two, especially, there's just been like this random influx of donors resulting from like the downswell of the pandemic, right? And I feel like our donor audience has become different, maybe more sophisticated is the right word. But people are also like exhausted in a way that they weren't in December 2020. And for folks who are thinking that they can get away with like a Giving Tuesday email and like maybe one other thing in the mail and call it a day, I'm actually, for my clients that I do all of the done for you work, I'm like making them double their communication pieces. So if they did 4 in the past, I'm making them do 8 this year. If they did 10 in the past, I'm making them do 20. Because I just think it's going to necessitate so many more touch points. But I can see how you're sitting in your seat and you're like, where the heck am I going to come up with the time to do double that work? And then is it going to result in what I wanted to result in? And I'll just share, Heather texted me like a few days ago a picture of herself, and she was like sitting at her computer and she was like, not me, like ready to sit down and write my appeal. And then she was like, thank God I have like those templates to go back to, which I include in the course, because yeah, starting from a blank page is tough, you know, and if you don't have to do it, I do it. I don't know. Okay, so you decide to purchase campaigns that convert. I'm just curious, like, what pushed you over the edge? Because I know a lot of people say to me, like, I'll put it in the budget for next year. And I'm like, okay, that's 12 months away because this only comes to town once a year. So I'm just curious, as both Achille, you having to go to your boss probably and ask for permission. Heather, I'm not sure if you get to call the shots or if you had to ask your board, but like, what pushed you to the like, yes, I'm doing this camp? Kelly, you want to go first?
Sure. So I did the Raise More Together Summit last year, and I got so many good tips and gems and tools and everything. And I enjoyed that so much. But what really made me want to do campaigns that convert were all the templates we got, right? Because it's one thing to get the ideas, but then it's like, write all this stuff down and like close that up, I'll get
Totally.
some of it eventually. And so the templates are what appealed to me. And the templates are also what we're able to sell it to my executive director, because it wasn't just something that I would have access to, something that everyone would have access to, and that we could use and tweak for other campaigns moving forward as well, And so I think that was really the selling point for us, is that it was kind of a timeless piece, of timeless investment for us. Organization wise, and then personally getting to have the calls with the group and hearing everyone else's feedback and having the Facebook group as well. I think that was really important for me personally in my development. And so I think it's good for all folks in nonprofit, no matter what your level is, that just ability to talk to people who are doing the same thing as you at the same time as you is very helpful.
Totally. Yeah, it was actually Mackenzie, Sweet Mackenzie. You guys know Mackenzie. She was over at our house last night hanging out with Liv, because if you don't know the story about Mackenzie, she started as our nanny like 6 years ago and has just, she's hooked me for life. But she was saying how compared to other programs that don't have that like community aspect, to be able to say like, hey, can someone else review this? Can like someone else check this for typos? Or like, how would you phrase this power statement? Like, let's just be straight. Like, people who aren't in this nonprofit fundraising world do not get it. Like, it's not the same marketing. It's not the same call to action. It's not the same motivators. So to have a community of other people who like do this every day, I think is priceless. And Mackenzie too was just sharing like, that's probably her favorite part as well, is just like having people to like brainstorm with that really, really get it. So I love that you had that too. How about you, Heather?
Yeah, it's actually very similar. I had taken a couple of your courses before, just like the one-day workshops, and knew that I always walked out with those tangible tools, which are huge for me and a huge sell. And I think having the community, I could make the decision myself, but I kind of also, told my board chair, I really think that this will get an ROI on it, right? Like, and if you've ever used, like, there's people here in town that will do your whole campaign for you, or a consultant that'll do it for you, but I always have the fear that it won't be my authentic voice, or the organization's authentic voice. And so having these tools, but like being able to kind of control the content and control the narrative ourselves and tell those powerful stories was huge for me. And the ROI was going to be instantaneous, pretty much. So
yeah, well, before, because I want to get into what you're all doing this year, if you like know, but can you just give the like fine people some of your fantastic results? Like, how much money did you raise? Did you see anything related to like retention or number of new donors or increased level of giving? Just, I'd love to know, like, what were some of the results from your 2021 campaign?
So in 2020, we raised 46,000. In 2021, I raised 76,000. So I had a 65% ROI or 65% increase. And, the ROI was huge on that, $1,000 that we spent to do the campaigns that convert. We increased the number of donors by 35%, and our online donations went up 115%. And our retention, our live months, the percentage was not the same, but was the same as the year before. So that's something that I really want to concentrate on this year. But I do feel like the follow-up and like the template that you gave us later in the season to say, hey, follow up with your donors, here's a quick email. I had people doubling their donations by doing that. So that was great.
I know, it kind of makes you wonder, like, oh gosh, if you didn't have that, like where it would have landed and shook out. So I mean, all of that is like so impressive.
And I will say, like, you give us so many different tools to be able to go into this. And the only things I did were I had emails, few champions, I mailed an appeal, and we did personal follow-up. So I chose what I knew our team and I could do. I did not go and do even all the things that you recommend, to be quite honest. So that was kind of our increase.
Yeah. And that's kind of the point, right? Like, that's why I think that this program can really last the ages, because the idea is like, you should do what you can do now. And then maybe next year you add on one thing. And then maybe the next year you add on nothing. And like, maybe in 5 years, you're doing like a full-fledged, like the whole kit and caboodle campaign, which you still have all the tools to do, right? But you don't have to do all of them if you don't want to. How about you? Results, Miss Phillips, tell us.
Okay, well, to be completely transparent, I left at the end of the year last year.
That's right.
And so I won't have all of the results from it. But what I can share with you guys is that we made a goal of raising $20,000 based on getting a certain amount of kids through our STEM program. And we used the opportunity to launch something we called giving dinners, which allowed folks in the community that were already advocates for us to host a kind of small in-home fundraiser. And so we did 2 of those, and we raised about $5,000 from that. And then we used the templates to create our kind of newsletter strategy. We put out about 5 emails using the templates. And then of course we did all the social media, but we didn't do any mailers. And on the 31st, no, was it the 31st? Yeah, on the 31st, I got an email from a donor saying to me, hey, I want to get a $20,000 check to you guys. How do I do it? And I texted my boss and I was like, I don't know that I'm like technically done, but I'll go to this man's house and get this. Just like unnecessary.
I know. I remember when you sent me that, like a text message or a DM, and I was just like, because that was your whole goal. And you like,
so goal was done.
Yes.
So I know for sure that we got checks after that, and we got, still folks reaching out and paying online and stuff. But those were the 2 big things, for those kind of in-home asks with folks who already supported us. Having those 2 was really helpful because it got us new donors, and it made those people even more invested in the work that we do. And I will say that can kind of work hand in hand with your fall fundraisers, because 2 of those hosts came to our fall fundraiser. So they were kind of pumped up from that. And then our $20,000 donor, he was a first-time sponsor for our fall event. And we reached out to him afterwards to say, hey, we'd love to get you on as our title sponsor next year. We'll put together a presentation for him about that. And so we were fresh in his mind from those conversations. And, last year, and I'm sure to an extent this year, we have some folks in our community who are just making a lot more money during COVID. Some people are making a lot more money, and they need to write it off. So, we're here for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I love though that you had a very different set of like revenue kind of, or I mean, what do I want to even call them? The way you did like these small in-home events, you did emails, you focus on social, compared to Heather, who did the social, the emails, some peer fundraisers, I like to call them champions, and then a physical mailer. So like anyone listening to this, you can mix and match and do what live within your strengths that work for your organization. I don't have a formula that's like, you have to do this, and that, because I get that like, sometimes that doesn't work for every organization. So you do you. Let's talk about this year a little bit. So we're coming up on 2022. You guys have all the information. all the education, all the resources. Can you give us a peek into what you're going to be raising money for in 2022, what elements you want to actually execute that, what your goals are, what you're kind of going back and reviewing from Campaigns That Convert that's helping you get there? Heather, you want to give us a little insight?
Sure. So my goal is 100,000 this year. I really need this 100,000. And, for me, just going back and looking at the templates, rewriting some of them, changing some up, and also, so this year our theme is like stronger together, because dementia is growing in our nation and our state. And so we need as a community to come together. And so I haven't quite figured out exactly which program or how I'm going to spend this yet, but the goal is 100,000. Definitely want to increase our retention rate this year. So we'll be focusing a lot on that. And I'm hopeful that we can have some more champions because of moving our walk to the fall or to the spring. Those people who would normally be quote unquote team captains, seeing if we wrote them early, we have that available, or if they want to do it with the for the walk, we have the team pages already set up so that they could even do it for the walk in the spring, because we're on a different fiscal year than the calendar. So yeah, I mean, I'm rewatching some of the course videos. I love being able to do that because I think it just like inspires, and you're able to get ideas and be like, oh yeah, I could do that this year. So definitely gone back and done that. But for me, the biggest thing has been those templates, and just, I also have gone back and I meet with my program staff and say, okay, what happened today? And what stories can you tell me? Because me sitting in my office is a lot different than them working with our clients one-on-one. And so they be able to provide me with quotes. And now they just know, like, if they get a good quote, like they have to just forward it right away. And so
I love that.
Since,
let me ask you, since you used the peer fundraising strategy a little bit last year, do you have any idea like what percentage of that $65,000 raised was in relationship to those peer fundraisers?
For us, it was actually very small. It was maybe like 4 or 5%.
Okay, cool. How about you, Achille? What's on the docket for 2022?
So I don't have our dollar amount yet. We are in month 9 of a comprehensive campaign. We're renovating an old firehouse and relocating a resource center there. And so our budget this year is almost $3 million. And so whatever I have left to raise is what will be my end of year. I hope it's 100 or less. And it looks like we're leaning towards that route. So I'm going to guesstimate 100,000 right now.
Yeah.
And just looking at some different ways into how to accomplish that. I was at a chamber leadership retreat this weekend, and by day 2 I was kind of over it. So I took a lot of notes on my end of year campaign during those last talks. And so we're looking to increase our monthly donors. In our new space, we've got this opportunity to create a living plant wall. And so we've talked about using that as our kickoff to fundraising for Giving Tuesday.
Cool.
So with the living plant wall, it will feature 200 plants. So we're going to have a kind of adopt a plant opportunity for folks. And so really looking at ways to get people physically in the firehouse, depending on what that dollar amount is. So that's what it will. That's the kind of overarching thing of what it will look like.
Yeah, I love that.
Kind of naming recognitions and stuff.
I love that. And you're like the plant queen. So that like is so fitting. So one of the things I teach, not just in Campaigns That Convert, but all the time, is like your end of year campaign should really begin now. And I love that you both are kind of, maybe you're not 2 feet in, but you're like already starting to marinate on what your ask is going to be. And I'm sure you're pulling lists like, who do I need to retain, or who do I need to ask for an upgrade? So I'm just so glad that like those kind of processes or things that I've said, over and over again are like really sticking with you throughout the year. And I just know that pre-raising that 25% is gonna make your guys' goals achievable, not having to wait till that Giving Tuesday first, like mass ask to raise all this money. Okay, so I want to open it up for questions, but my last question for you is really like, for anyone who's kind of maybe feeling skeptical or on the fence about campaigns that convert, like, what would you say to them? And like straight up, like, again, I have Mackenzie over here and she's literally always like, whoever doesn't buy this is like out of their mind, because this is like so much value for what it is. But again, I can say that all day and people are like, okay, sure. But I think hearing something from you someone that sits in their shoes would be really, really helpful. And then I want to open it up for questions. So if you have a specific end of your question for either or Achille, you can start putting them in the chat and I can get those answered.
So I would say 65% increase. Like, that's huge for our smaller nonprofit. So you invest $1,000 and you most likely are going to get 65 times that. And so I think there's also a lot of other programs that are fluff, that don't give you the tangible tools that you need. We're all busy and Jess knows that. And so she tries to make it as easy and followable, but also have that community. And I will say it is a time commitment. It is you do have to do the work. But if you put in the work, like I guarantee you will see that, that return on your investment.
Cool. Achille, anything from you?
Yeah, I echo everything Heather said, like you're going to make the money back. And honestly, if you invested in this and you didn't use it until next year, I could tell you would still make your money back, because the cost of your time, the cost of your hours to write anything is over $1,000. I often will be working on something and then I think, okay, how much money have I just spent doing this in terms of my time? And if it was too much money, I need to look at another way how to do this, right? And so I think that the cost shouldn't be a barrier, because you'll make the money back through donations or through time. And then I just can't say enough about the templates, how good the templates are. I shouldn't say but I download a lot of free templates and then I go, I don't want to use this.
Yeah.
This isn't great, like these are written by a human being for other human beings to read and speak to in a language that's exciting, but also like easy to edit to fit whatever your tone is as well. And so the templates are just awesome.
Thank you for saying that. I'm also curious because kind of like my framework can really apply to anything, whether you're getting ready to launch a campaign, but rather than that, maybe it's like you're going to launch like an event or something. Have you guys used kind of the framework of like the lead up, the pre-asking, is that part of y'all's process? Because Mackenzie and I were also talking about like every part of my framework is like kind of out there, but like it's very organized in campaigns that convert. And I'm just curious if you've ever applied that to like a different fundraising avenue.
Yeah, so for our mid-year, go ahead.
I was gonna say I haven't done outside of campaigns for mid-year. Yes, I did do it this year. But like we're thinking of doing a gala next year. We've never done one. It's gonna be more like a house party because it's our 10th anniversary. But yeah, this would be perfect to use this for a different fundraising space.
And I was gonna say, yeah, I have for a campaign we ran for our monthly giving. And so just utilize some of the things there. And then even our gala and our golf tournament this morning, I was like, I don't want to say the same old thing. And so I was like, let me tell a story. And so I told a story of, a gentleman who called us for help and for his mother-in-law. And so like, just the way that Jess is, her classes and then just the templates have helped to train my brain to always be looking for that story.
I love that. I love that so much. Like, because I literally posted about that today. I was like, when in doubt, tell a story. Okay, cool.
And that was
Well,
before I saw that.
I love it. I love it. I love that you've just trained your brain. Okay, so now let's give the mic over to anyone of you that are still here and have a question for either Heather or Killy. Feel free to either unmic yourself or type something in the chat. Or we have just a few minutes where if you're like, I really don't know what I would be asking for this year, or I have no idea how much money I should raise, or just any end of year questions, you've got 3 of us right here to help you answer them. I will also say, and I will put this in the email, I'm releasing a bonus. So if you grab campaigns that convert, you will also get a customized Loom video of me reviewing all of your materials. So you can literally like send me your emails, send me your appeal. I will read it all. I will send you a Loom video back of like how to change things, what to change, so that you just really feel like you're not guessing, that you have a true expert who has done this a lot of times, kind of giving you that A+ mark before it goes off and into the world. So that's coming too. But does anyone have any questions for our guests?
While people are thinking of their questions, I just have to add, if you're not using Loom, Loom is amazing. We've been using it for acknowledgements. So our executive director sends a Loom video to anyone who gave 500 or more to our mid-year appeal. And the feedback we got was really great. People are very excited about getting it. She's been shooting them from the firehouse, which is currently being renovated. So people love that. So they're kind of in the space, you know. But depending on what your organization is, you have a space or a room or something that kind of excites your donors. So
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And I love like the background.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain to Connie what Loom is?
Sure. So it's a video sharing platform. You have they have an app, and then they also have it where you can use on your desktop. So the way we use it is through the app. And really, like when I shared about it in the Raise Together group, someone was like, it's just like sharing a video. But it's a little bit different because it goes in a link. So you're sending a link to a video that folks can look at. It's easier for you to shoot. And it feels different and special. It doesn't feel like they're getting something from YouTube, or it just feels different for them. And it's also easier for us to kind of keep everything in one space, count the views that you're getting. And then it can be used for other things as well. So like you can, our web designer, for example, he'll share Loom videos with us because if he's on our website, he can record a screen and then kind of showcase to us what we need to be doing differently. So it has lots of uses, but for donors in particular, it's just a nice link to a video that they get to view that's personalized for them.
Yeah.
And so how I plan to use it for end of year is that I'm going to have all of our board members create just generic thank yous that I can send out to folks as they give. So my boss isn't going to make everyone an individual one. Like there's just not time for that always. But I think that the other option is still good for us to test out and see what the reaction is.
Totally. Can you guys just on that note, unless someone has like a burning question that I can't see that you're asking, can you tell us a little bit about what you did post campaign? Because the last module in Campaigns That Convert is all about what happens after the gift comes in, which is the easiest part to forget. And unfortunately, the most important to getting the next gift. So can you guys talk to us about what you guys did? And I know, Akili, you moved on from the organization. So hopefully your past organization did something, but Heather, can you tell us what you did?
Yeah, so in our normal, I guess, stewardship matrix, so everybody got a Loom video that did our campaign, which is a lot of work, but I had a major donor write back and said it was one of the best acknowledgements that she had ever gotten. And that was a lot, you know, coming from her. And so we did that. We sent thank you letters, and then already we have board members who will thank at a certain level as well. So yeah, and then I don't know that I honestly did a really great job of cultivating quite as the way I would have liked to afterwards, but you know,
Well,
they continue.
honestly, you did that. I
Yeah,
always say for like people who are like, what's Loom? I don't know about this Loom. And like, oh, like it can take a lot of time. Every single, like, so I teach people this. And then whenever I get one back, I'm like, oh, this really works. Like, I feel so special.
well, and I will say it takes less time to do a Loom video than it does to handwrite a note.
Mhm.
And my handwriting's terrible, so like, yeah, I'm a big fan.
It's such a good, it's so good. And it's free. They have a free version. I think it's worth like the $25 a year or whatever it is to pay for the paid version, but I there's like no excuses. Yes, game changer. Okay, I know everyone's super duper busy. I'm not going to keep folks longer if there's no more questions, but if you do have a question, speak now or forever hold your peace. Any questions? End of year giving, what am I asking for? What should I do? I'm feeling overwhelmed. How do I get started? Anything. You guys are quiet today. I get it. It's Thursday. Okay. Well, if you do have any, oops, here we go. Lucretia says, what changes are you implementing this year in light of the competition with the political fundraising? Have you guys thought about that at all?
No, I mean, not really. I think we're a breath of fresh air for us to, I mean, we're not a political organization. So for us, I think it's a breath of fresh air. Dementia is, you know, across both aisles. I will tell the stories a little bit more. One thing that has worked for me is I do not brand any of the emails, so people feel like they're getting an email directly from me. So I may step it up a little bit to do, you know, more videos or more just to put my face out there a little bit more. But no, I mean, it's always going to be there every 4 years or every 2 years. So
Achille, anything to add?
No, it's not something we could take into consideration. We just push, you know, that we're a local organization helping local families and stick with that message.
Yeah, I would say because I've been getting some questions in my DMs about like inflation and all these things, right? And my thought around that is like you can either be in the camp where you're going to let that kind of stuff distract you, or you can make a plan and stick to the plan and adjust that plan as necessary. So if you're halfway through your campaign and you're not raising to where you want to raise money yet, like what can you double down on? Who can you reach out to on an individual basis? The election has nothing to do with that. The election is also November 8th. I really encourage people depending on your sector, because for example, if you're a breast cancer focused organization, October might be a big month, or if you're a veterans focused organization, November could be a big month. But for most of my clients, the way I teach campaigns that convert is it really kicks off with a whole bunch of impact stories starting now. And then there's a whole lot of gratitude the week of Thanksgiving. And then your campaign really kicks off with Giving Tuesday, which this year is November 29th. So that's like almost 3 weeks later than the campaign. Not that people won't be perhaps still reeling from it. But it's like Heather said, it's not going away. And you can either like say, am I going to let this kind of be the fear that stops me from going all in on my campaign? Or you can just ignore it. Tracy asks, do you recommend segmenting out those who give to an email campaign in the next email that goes out? Yes, we have a whole lesson on segmentation. I am a ginormous fan of segmenting. I encourage people to transition your donor once they've given, whether that's a check or online, they need to stop getting asks from you. I also have some other segments I encourage people. So like Heather was talking about a Libun list or a Cybun list. You can basically put them through an email sequence with just slightly tweaked wording so that you recognize that they've actually donated before you versus, and I think Heather, you did this last year, versus using like, make your first gift. like that's the kind of language you would use for a new donor versus a donor who gave in 2021. You might want to say something like, we'd love to have you back as a supporter again, or something. I mean, that's like really bad wording, and I give way better examples in the course, but it's just little tiny tweaks that make people feel very seen and like you actually know who they are. I also teach strategy called the upgrade email, which I have a template for, where you can go to like 15, 25 donors who've given consistently in the past and say like, hey, would you consider like a gift of X, which is a percentage above the previous year. So yes, I'm a ginormous fan of segmenting. People always ask me, who should I send my physical appeal to? Because it is a cost to print and mail. I have a very specific way. Achille and Heather probably know this about what I want that envelope to look like and this, that, and other. But I think that's up to your discretion. I usually say a minimum of, if someone made a gift in the most recent 36 months, that's kind of like what I recommend. But some people want to go to 5 years. Some people want to do any donor that's ever given to the organization ever. So like you can choose what's best for yours, but I kind of like that like 36. If someone's given to you sometime in the last 3 years, they should get your physical appeal, and physical mail is not dead. Elizabeth's asking, what's the most effective for you in terms of coming up with storytelling ideas or frameworks? Okay, I'm not going to answer this because this is not my problem. I have a brain that won't shut off. But Heather, Achille, how do you guys come up with storytelling ideas? You mentioned one, Heather, about your staff helping you out. Achille, do you have any ways?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, a big part was figuring out what our goal was. And because our goal was related to STEM and summer, we chose that as our kind of base for stories. So who's had success in our summer program? Who's had success with our STEM programming, and creating our stories around that in particular. And then I'll say for Family Promise this year, we have a word every year. So our word is community. And so I'll pick stories that really bring to mind community in terms of the families that we've served.
You're such a good student, because that's what I teach. Like a lot of times organizations do a couple of things. I know both of your organizations do a couple of things. And it's like, if you know that at the end of your campaign, you want to raise money to, you know, feed people, but your program houses people and clothes people and gets people jobs, like in your lead up content, you should be talking about feeding people, since you're going to ask them to support your hunger program, versus like dancing all over the place, right? And that's like something very strategic I teach. But so that makes me like so happy that you just said that you're already planning the theme in mind, and then you're going to point stories in that way. So it's like an obvious choice versus like, wait, they do what? They do this? They've been telling about all this other stuff. Now they do this. How about you, Heather?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that kind of was an aha moment for me last year is, so we work with families that are going through the dementia journey. And, you know, sometimes they don't necessarily want to share their story right then. And, or I'm very sensitive about who I ask to give me a quote, for example. And so, but a lot of the stories are so much the same. And so it doesn't have to be real people. So I have made up Sally Jane and Mr. Smith, you know, and talked about, and so I intermingle them into my real client stories. And then Jess, I love what you said about like, and Achille, like really playing into the theme. So for example, this year we're talking about community and community together. And I just happen to have a mom whose her best friend is has a husband with Alzheimer's, and they have continued to have dinner with her, you know, their best friend who's the caregiver. And so I'm telling that story of like, you know, there's this group of friends and they have continued to include them. And so how can we be that for somebody else in the community? And just really looking for stories that play into that theme is huge. But they also don't have to be, they can be one sentence. It can be, you know, Joe forgot his wife's name, and that was really hard for his wife. How can, you know, and so he came to us for help to make her feel safe and loved.
Totally.
That could be you could put anybody's name in that. So
totally.
yeah.
Totally. I'm kind of curious on your all's answer to Emily's question. And then I can obviously give my 2 cents, but she's asking if you would recommend campaigns that convert to a nonprofit that's never done external fundraising before.
I would say absolutely if you have a list of contacts, and I think this is a great setup for the future.
I'm very curious as to what that means. What do you mean they have done external fundraising? How are these funds raised?
Yeah. So she's going to be starting it. So yeah, I mean, I would say, Emily, if they're, so part of what I teach in campaigns that convert in this lead up phase is to really like boost up any kind of list in advance. And there's a couple strategies I teach to how to do that. But if you're starting at 0, I mean, they've got to come up with the list some way, sometime. And what I would say, because this has come up from some client calls, is this is the best time to fundraise. Like, it's the most profitable giving season of the year. So I would say if you're gonna start fundraising externally, like these next 3 months are the time to do it. I wouldn't wait until January 2023. I wouldn't wait till March or August. Like, if you're going to get started, end of your giving season is going to be your most profitable. And so I think it becomes a question of, do you want to invest in a program so you have the roadmap and the support and the accountability to really execute? Or do you want to like kind of just figure it out on your own? I like to say, Google yourself to death. And it might be for this first round less about raising, $1 million, but it's just about like putting kind of the systems in place to put you on the right track so that come 2023, you knock it out of the park or something like that.
Yeah, I wanted to just follow up on that because you said it at the beginning of the call and I wrote it down, which is that the goal does not always need to be financial, right? And like, that was a great reminder for myself, because especially as we're looking to use this for beyond end of year, every goal does not need to be financial. So if you're starting their list, being able to say like, this is our number of folks we're trying to get a hold of, I think that would be a really good plan. And people like businesses, congregations, lots of folks right now are looking for ways to serve. And so really what you're doing is providing an opportunity for people to get involved. And this is the best time to do it. And the templates are the best way to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Another thing that's worked for us to build is I do have a pop-up that comes up when you visit our website, and it has worked. But beyond that, having a welcome sequence within that offers value. So even thinking about getting some of that in place, and I think some of Jess's campaigns that convert templates could even do some of that for you. But like, I also feel like that has primed our donors throughout the year, because when they join our mailing list, they're getting that warm welcome in that sequence.
Yeah, I think I include the welcome sequence in the templates as well. So you guys have that. Someone asked about the tech part of the segmenting. So because literally every nonprofit is on different platform, rather than like walking you through the tech, which I can do like on a one-on-one kind of basis, I think what instead I do is I just give you the list of different segments you could use so that you can use that information to go pull your own segments. Because if I was to speak specifically to like MailChimp, people are going to be like, but I'm on Can't Convert, whatever. I'm on Flowdesk. I'm on ActiveCampaign. I'm in Bloomring. And there's just at this point too many platforms, but I definitely tell you what are some possible segment options that you can or should consider. But just like we talked about all the different campaign components that are possible, right? Getting a match donor, using peer fundraisers, email, social, postcard, Loom video, like there's all this stuff, right? You can also like not segment outside of like removing donors, or you can get super duper fancy with all sorts of segments. So like a segment for your volunteers versus a segment for your monthly donors versus a segment for like your major gift donors. So I kind of like break it down that way rather than show you how to do it in all the various platforms. Yeah. Any last questions, as we actually did make it to the hour? I know you guys got curious at the end there. I'm so glad that that was helpful. If anyone has any questions about anything, you can DM me or Heather or Achille. I'm not sure if you're open to questions, if you're like, but like, give me the tea. If you guys would be open to like people sending you a message, do you want to share your handles down in the chat? Or if like LinkedIn is like a better option or whatever. Thanks to you guys all for being here. Even if this is not the year for campaigns that convert, I hope you got something out of this conversation. Campaigns that convert is available until next Tuesday, the 20th. Remember, we did just release that new bonus, and I might have another like trick or two up my sleeve before next Tuesday. So be on the lookout if you're just considering it. And good luck this giving season. I'm feeling very optimistic, but I also know it's going to take some effort. So may the fundraising gods be with you. Achille, Heather, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you endlessly. I love seeing your all success. And here's to raising a boatload of money. All right, you guys, enjoy your Thursday. Thank you. Bye.